Amazingly enough, no matter where you're born, children across the world have the same potential for growth and development if they're provided the right nutrition and health care. If we are depriving children of that good nutrition, I think it's really a betrayal of our common humanity. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Shawn Baker. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Helen Keller International. I have been invited to chair an independent expert group to help inform the Nutrition for Growth Summit, and I'm really privileged to do that because nutrition is so fundamental to everything we're trying to do. Malnutrition drives 45% of under 5 deaths, so those children may have died from some other cause, but in fact, if they've been well nourished, they'd be alive today, 45%. And for those children who survive malnutrition, we've deprived them of their cognitive and physical development. So we've locked them into this cycle of poverty and exclusion. And that's grim, but what makes it outrageous is that we have a whole set of solutions to change that. Solutions can be delivered through the health system, through social protection, through the food systems. And we're in an era where we've had progress in nutrition, but that progress is now being totally undermined by this confluence of crises. The lingering effects of the COVID pandemic, conflicts that just destabilize communities, destabilize services, the food price crisis, which makes it more and more difficult for families to purchase nutritious food, and of course the climate crisis, which is undermining all the systems that households rely on to nourish their mothers and children. So to me, the theme of the spring meetings of the Paris Peace Forum here in Ben Gurir, fair transitions. We cannot have fair transitions unless nutrition is in the very center of these transitions. To me, one of the transitions that's underway that can either become a train wreck or be a force of good is the transition of the food system. And the food systems across the world are evolving so quickly. And unfortunately, left unchecked, they evolve towards a food system that is producing unhealthy food, and that healthy food is more and more out of reach. And is also actually the food system, that transition if left unchecked, is going to be a negative force for climate change, not a positive force. And to me, that's one of the transitions where we need to put good nutrition at the very center to make sure that we see the food system as it transforms needs to produce healthier, safer, nutritious food, and particularly for those groups who are the most at risk of malnutrition. I actually often question if Global South and Global North make sense anymore, because I think the true stratification is along socioeconomic quintiles. And we see, while the manifestations of poor nutrition in the Global North might be different than in the Global South, the structural issues are all the same. It's really a question of equity, because it's those who are most left behind, have the least place at the table, who are having the least access to health services, the least access to healthy food. And be you sitting in Dakar or Washington, D.C., your nutritional status is not driven by your geography, it's driven by where you sit on that socioeconomic quintile. And so I think, and to me, nutrition is really what brings us together as humanity. I will become a bit of a nutrition geek for a second. The World Health Organization carried out a multi-year effort of doing growth standards for children called the Multi-Center Growth Standard Reference Study, and then also to look at growth in utero. And the outcome of those studies, where there were study populations spread across the world, is that, amazingly enough, no matter where you're born, children across the world have the same potential for growth and development if they're provided the right nutrition and health care. So to me, this is really this fundamental evidence that all children of our common humanity, and if you put it on the flip side, if we are depriving children of that good nutrition, I think it's really a betrayal of our common humanity. That's a good question, and I'm not sure I'm going to respond to it, but if I may share an anecdote. I had the great pleasure of being in Ghana last week, and a good colleague of mine of long-standing, Professor Anna Larte, who's retired, actually still gives courses on nutrition in the University of Ghana. And so I got myself invited to give a guest lecture to these students. And to me, it was one of the most energizing moments because I saw the future in front of me. These young people at bachelor's and master's level passionately engaged for nutrition, creating the human resources that are really going to deliver the good nutrition agenda in the future. And to me, it was just one of those moments like, yes, I'm feeling confident about the future because the young people in the classroom, with their intellectual engagement, their deep personal passionate engagement, were posing all the right questions, and you can tell they were truly going to be out there and change the face of nutrition for mothers and children in the future. Well, and I think it's an important point. So one thing I think the perception of nutrition is often confused. It's like, okay, there's just not enough calories out there, but in fact it's actually having good nutritional practices and nutritious food. And if I step back, and what I say are really the 5 root causes of malnutrition. The first is orphan, because who owns nutrition? Is it the health sector? Is it the agricultural sector? Is it the food business? Is it social protection? In fact, we need all these systems to come together. So who in government is standing up every day and saying we need good nutrition? Everybody get together to deliver it. The second is that it's invisible for many people, because often in the public's mind, malnutrition is that severely wasted child who needs treatment. But most of malnutrition acts invisibly in depriving the immune system and depriving cognitive development. It has lethal consequences, but it's just not seen. It also can be quite difficult to measure nutritional status, which exacerbates that invisibility. The fourth one is the weight phenomenon. It's often people say, okay, we've got this other global crisis, so once we solve that, then we'll address nutrition. Whereas in fact, if we deprive children in that 1,000-day window from conception through the second birthday of good nutrition, we have really sacrificed their futures forever. And nutrition is one of the first things to suffer, particularly nutrition of mothers and children during any crisis. And the last is voiceless, because who's most at risk of malnutrition? They're the people who are the most left out of the political process, who don't have a voice at the table. Another sector, look at HIV. We had activists scaling walls of parliament, demanding action. We don't have children suffering from wasting who can demand the rights to good nutrition. So one of the most fundamental things, and I think this is where the Paris Peace Forum, the Nutrition for Growth Conference, is to really break that cycle of complacency, that malnutrition in this day and age, given what we know about the burden, the devastating cost of inaction, the solutions that we have, and we know we can deliver it if there is the political will, the human resources, and the financial resources. Malnutrition should be a thing of the past.